Bien, en la siguiente conferencia, Léon Krier, maestro del urbanismo tradicional y primer ganador del Premio Driehaus, nos hablará de un proyecto en el que está ahora mismo trabajando.
When I published a large book on the architecture of Albert Speer, my old master, James Sterling, said, "You know, Leo, if you publish that, you will have no more work in Germany." I said, who cares, you know, about Germany? Well, I not only had no work in Germany, I had no work in France, I had no work in Italy, I had no work in Europe, except for the Prince of Wales, who didn't believe all this stupid slander, you know. Because the point is that all powers, all political, religious, civic powers throughout the ages until 1945, including the dictators, the worst dictators, knew how much aesthetics and beauty were part of legitimizing power, however criminal they were. And so even the architecture of Albert Speer and Hitler has sides which are really in that tradition. So if you say that, this beautiful building by Albert Speer, people said, but are you Nazi? If I say that I love the Maidan and the Queen's Pavilion in Isfahan, nobody says, are you an Islamist or Muslim? Or if an Iranian friend comes to Palma de Mallorca and says, this fantastic cathedral, I do not ask, are you Catholic? No. Because beauty unifies mankind, has been unifying mankind from the beginning of our grandmother, Eva. And since 1945, architecture is dividing people, is dividing the profession from the users. And it's a scandal. And most architecture schools teach this non-language, this incomprehensible garbage language. And we are part of a very small brotherhood which transcends religious, racial, color, language divides and unifies again mankind in creating beautiful objects. As I am banned from Europe, I now get work in Central America. I would very much like to do work in Luxembourg, but ever since I did with my brother, we did the Justice Palace, we are like enemy number one. So anyway, who cares? But people like it, and we don't have to explain or justify. People like it without, they don't need to be told, because architecture is a language which is universal, which you understand without translation or justification. Herencia de Allende, the owner of the land, Juan Carlos Sanchez, came to us in Guatemala, where we do a large project, and he loved it so much that he wanted us to do a project in Mexico, near San Miguel de Allende, which is an extraordinary city, very beautiful, no explanation needed. It's a World Heritage Site, people come from around the world. And the location we are building is going to be 10 kilometers from this beauty. In a film with Robert Mitchum, he enters San Miguel de Allende in 1949, when it was still a white city. It was all white lime. But now it has become fashionable to color it. We are going to build a white city, a shining white city on the hill. Our site is between San Miguel de Allende and Atotonilco, which is this famous pilgrimage site, and on the left you have an image which you see from our site, which is a hillside. You see the cupolas of Atotonilco. You see here San Miguel de Allende there, 1946, and now exploded like all cities around the world, but not with the same kind, but with suburbs, gated communities, and so on. Social housing, camps, and so on. Our site is very large, 450 hectares, and of which we will build 150 hectares, a third, and the rest will be dedicated to agriculture, horticulture, some tree planting, and some parks. We did the first charrette because the project Sanchez had was so horrible that I said, you of course know we have to start from scratch. And he couldn't believe it because he had paid a lot of money for the project they had. So we went there just for a week to find out whether we can work with these people. And yes, we could work. We already worked on the farm and had the first concept that it would be, it's a 3-kilometer ridge, 3-kilometer long ridge with steep inclines. And we decided to have 4 urban quarters on the ridge, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a small rural quarter on kind of peninsula going downhill. And then there are 2 like hills, extramural hills, where we have bridges and so on for a large hotel and the pilgrimage center, Santuario. And all the 4 quarters are unified, 5 quarters are unified by the Gran Via, which goes right through the town, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so every quarter is clearly legible, has a clearly legible edge, and a strong spine which unifies it all, and each is, you can walk across one in 10 minutes. The main, and that's the main body, we are starting now, we have already started. It was amazing, after hardly a year of planning, we started with the first phase. This is the central quarter. And the main traffic, so here you see the Gran Via. You have a large agricultural college which is going to come here. And then you have 3 campestre areas, which are large or smaller farms or vineyards on the hillsides. These are fairly steep, and these are rather smoothing out. You have an important river, the Leja, which runs all around, and then dry Rio Secos on this side, and here as well. The major influence on this project was Andrés Duani's project for Santa Gloria, which was incidentally near San Miguel, 10 kilometers, but it was not realized. This was, he did 10 years ago, and he published a beautiful small book with Prince's Foundation in London called Agrarian Urbanism, how industrial-scaled, hyper-scaled agriculture, industrial agriculture, can be transformed into small-scale local agriculture feeding actual local cities rather than bringing food from China and Peru. I love my mangoes every morning, but they come from Peru, and that won't last. We were one generation of people who profited from this, but the future is another story. Now, the main traffic approach is from this major route going from San Miguel de Allende to Herreras, no, I forget the name. And this is an old traffic, a train route going to Atotonilco and beyond, which is now transformed into a road. So those are the main axes. You arrive here, and then the main traffic never goes through the Gran Via, but approaches by an east side corniche, a grand plaza here, changing sides, and then a southern corniche road. So as you drive, you experience the whole geography, and then a large, very large boulevard, Boulevard de los Héroes, and then links here to the existing road system. we said we only accept this project with that it will not be gated, because the problem is that virtually all extensions, suburban extensions of San Miguel de Allende are gated communities where the Americans or whoever has money from South America lives gated away from society. And I said, this is unchristian. I'm not practicing Catholic, but I was brought up, and I knew that the most important thing about religion is that it relates you to community of people who believe in the same values, whether they are God, whom we can never know, or whether it's the community which is positive civic space where rivalries, the violence which is produced by human rivalries, inevitably and forever will be civilized. And that's why you have good manners, why even the worst people should build beautiful buildings. And it is that beauty which is a language which is common to us all and which we accept as a gift, to society. And my father was a craftsman, and doing a good job is something which relates you to other people. In the first charrette, yes, sorry, I forgot to say this. We worked together with Irene Perez Porro, my companion, and with Pedro Godoy and Maria Sanchez, who are the heads of Estudio Urbano in Guatemala City, with whom we do the Cayela project. They are formidable architects. They were both trained at Notre Dame by our dear Dean Michael Likudis and Samir Younes from Lebanon and people like that. And Richard Economakis from Greece. The extraordinary thing is that, true to the spirit of Catholicism, Notre Dame University is a Catholic university, but virtually all the teachers I know are non-Catholics. Are Orthodox or Jewish, and the prizes or Muslim, and El Wakil and Brightman, they're all from different backgrounds, and they get the prize. And we all admire them, and we are friends. So it's like a model of humankind, what it can be, instead of throwing acid at each other and bombs and threatening with bombs. And we did this first charrette, which was purely to get to know the people, but we had already a master plan after 4 days. And Pedro and Maria got involved with doing proposals for the houses. Now, the houses of San Miguel de Allende are basically courtyard houses, very similar to the ones which Mohammed showed, because they are with the climate which is extremely hot and dry, and it allows to make a public statements, but also have your privacy with your private sky. That's the first time. It's a fantastic idea. You have your private sky with your private moon and private sun. And the clients, they got so enthusiastic that then 6 months later we made the second charrette with this formidable group of people. In the buildings which we had already changed, because they were rather poor finca with 50s taste, style architecture, rather poor. And then the client's wife is an architect, and she, then under guidance mainly of Maria and Irene and myself and Pedro, we sent lots of corrections and recommendations, and finally they asked for them, and now they do it. And it's after 1 year of going to a place which was rather poorly aesthetically, it has become a miracle. And all the trees, which were bushes and thousands of trees, but you never could see the landscape because it was so dense, full of hedges and all sorts of organic material which had not been really mastered. We recommend it to crown lift, it's called. You cut the lower branches, and suddenly you have like what's called in Rome, the beautiful park, with the pine trees floating in a pincher and so on. So they followed, and they crown lifted thousands of trees. And so in the second charrette, which made then projects for the central quarter, of which the finca, the existing finca, which was here, is becoming part. Now, this is very interesting that we'll have a town center which will be very, very green, because we maintain hundreds of trees, of fully grown trees, We also did a lexicon, as always, done by good new urbanists, and I saw this beautiful thing by Elena and Abelardo. It was, it's so interesting to do a lexicon of parts of a town or region, or even of a house. I am doing now one of Corbusier. No, it's very interesting to decompose a language into parts, which is then reutilizable, and then you are immediately, within a week, you know the language, because it's not like a spoken language. You can never get rid of your accent with which you grew up, you know. But an architectural language you can learn within a month, and you can do beautiful towns. And so there you see the situation without the trees, but this was the finca, and this a chapel, the Capilla del Sagrado Corazón de Jesus, which became our sample, what this should be, the real new Mexican architecture. And here we go down towards one of the breaks between the second and the third quarter, Barrio Central. This old finca, which is now already mostly transformed, here, and that capilla, and then there are enormous trees here. And then we will have, that's a finca, which is then surrounded with parking. There's parking within these blocks, and then we have the very center, the central Plaza Mayor, with Alcadia, and then a market, and the gate here, the gate to the town, which you saw here. And that's the gate with the existing capilla, which looked absolutely not very nice. Looked like a pizza parlor with a bell. And it's now like this, because Maria Sanchez and then finally myself, we got involved in changing this absolute horror of Catholic kitsch into a real place, which is very much inspired and in the spirit of nearby Atotonilco. The only thing we keep is the Jesus here, which is gilded and will be surreal in this. And we finally opened more the cupola, and now it's a real cupola with the light comes in. Here you couldn't see any light. And the thing was to convince them to get, to cover this in plaster, and instead of doing the real nice job which a modern plasterer does with planks and very precise and corner angles, we forbade them, not forbade them, but we recommended not to use corner profiles and not to use planks to make it precise, just to use the trowel, and then the trowel, you can never do it completely precise, and that's what's vernacular. And there we are. And we even, for the kitsch with Catholic, I tried to, what's a Eucharist representation looks like? It's absolutely vomit. Look at the web. You say Eucharist, Catholic Eucharist. It's disgusting. I mean, the Vatican should intervene. No. So we do rather tasteful representation of, okay. This is what it was here. We thickened the pillars, and it has become marble. This is Pedro and Maria. We have 5 thermal water sources, which actually give us the size of population which will be allowed. And this is warm water, so you can even swim in the... It's at 1,800 meters altitude. And this was all done within a year by correspondence. So that shows what you can do nowadays. And this is going to be the entrance port, the porte cochère for the hotel, 16 meters high. This is in the party area, which is here. Where is it? There. So this was the result of the second charrette, and this is the key. This is the center where we maintain enormous trees, pine trees, and the idea was, I once visited Alabama, there's in Neshoba, it's a summer city where people have just for a summer market, where people come from 100 miles and are there for 2 weeks, and they exchange things and whatever they do and think. And maintaining trees, and you have most of these buildings are empty for the whole year and just alive for 2 weeks. And so it was this idea that you can have actually an urban center with amongst the trees, and it will be paradise, I think. And then you have, from the central square, you have the town hall and the large market building, and then you have the Gran Via continuing, and there is the Calle Santuario, which looks towards our hill with the sanctuary. Sorry. And that's the main square with Pedro's Ayuntamiento and the market building. And Javier, you can recognize that fountain? It's from Bilbao, more or less. I mean, I didn't look too precisely, but. And that's the Calle del Santuario. The Santuario is actually on a hill beyond that. And that's the Via Grande. And then we have several building types. You know, the Palacito, we call them, which have underground parking. And then most of the blocks are the insulas. Those are the Palacitos. And then the house with the courtyards. They have, the block is always a street and divided by a mews, by like an English mews, a passage with a private garage. And then we have the famous forks, the flat above the garage, which works very well with the courtyard houses. I'm just going quickly through, and it's so all that was done within a year. We got now a permit to build. It's in the local plan, and then we have these two barrios campestres, which are small agricultural or small where it's too steep for cultivating. It will be small, rather terraced housing. And then here you see them. And here is the main, that's the Barrio Central, the Avenida de los Héroes, which is our Ramblas, which is oriented towards a hill where you have on top of it, it's like La Superga, you know, in Turin, with a gigantic porch and a fantastic cupola. So the church can redeem all its sins in beautiful architecture. And look at that inside of the church. It's a mixture of Maya and Christian architecture, and that's the Ramblas de los Héroes. Voilà, I think I'm in time.